Fearless Flight Live. And we have a new face here. We're missing a face who has internet problems, but Elaine will be back next week. But I'm Captain Ron, and I can't say to my left because you may be seeing something different, but up there with the baseball cap is Eric Larson. See, you're the guy that keeps me honest, supposedly, but if they really knew you, they would know that that's not possible either.
The critic.
So, yeah.
I'll be the critic. Yeah.
Diane Hansen, our fresh flight attendant, and Dieter Staudinger, who's up in Toronto, and our special guest tonight, Joanna Stadweiser. And so welcome to all of you. And this is, it's our show. If this is your first time here, welcome. And we do this show every week for people who are either afraid to fly, who know somebody's afraid to fly, or who just likes to hang out and talk about airplanes and listen to Eric and I tell lies about flying. So we, as pilots, one of the things they swear you to is never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So we managed to keep that alive. So
that's why they have flight attendants, to tell the truth.
Yeah, there you go. And we want to first comment on our Facebook group. We are still going towards 700. And Elaine, I wonder if she has the news, the total there, because I haven't checked myself. But the 700th person who pushes us over 700 there is going to get their choice of either a Fearless Flight kit, my all-purpose everything you've ever wanted in a Fear of Flying toolkit, or an hour of coaching with me. So we'll be announcing that as soon as we break through 700 there. And if you aren't a member of Birds of a Feather, our Fearless Flight group, we sure encourage you to do that. It is very active. It's hard for me to keep up with anything on Facebook, but the group itself, I've been much more active in the past couple of weeks, and there's some great comments that come in there. There's some great support and some interesting information that you guys pass amongst yourselves there. I'm going to touch on a little bit of that tonight. So anyway, but we do encourage you to join whenever you get a chance to do that. Okay, tonight's show, we're going to announce, give you the details on the fact that the classes are opening up, and we're reopening the classes here in Phoenix. We got the go-ahead from the Airport Authority and Southwest Airlines. Really looking forward to it, and I can't say enough about that. And we found out that with the relaxation of COVID, at least sensibilities maybe, we can get more people if we hold the class entirely on the airplane than we could before using the class. We used to split the class into part of the classroom activity in the classroom and then on the airplane. So, and Diane, you might want to say a little bit about just the how that's changing out there in the industry.
Right, as the regulations and the restrictions relax, different airlines are kind of incrementally reducing the capacity limits on the number of passengers on their planes. So, for example, as Ed, Ron, and I had talked about before the show started, Delta specifically, they have a specific date for not blocking center seats anymore on their aircraft that have a 3-3 configuration, 3 seats on each side of the aisle. And some of the other airlines are doing the same sort of thing. They're removing the capacity limits, some of them entirely. And so the planes are going to be full. So if you're flying, and if you've flown in the past and there's been kind of wide open spaces, it's getting back to normal. So you're not going to find those wide open spaces anymore, which is wonderful for the airline industry. We want everybody to get back in the air.
Yeah, May 1st is the date that Delta is going to go back to not blocking the middle seat anymore. And I just flew to Las Vegas and back midweek myself, and both flights were full to capacity. And Southwest, they do their boarding thing where you line up out by group, and they no longer do the 6-foot spacing there. It's just like the old days what was there. So, okay. All right. Back to the rest of things for tonight. We got our special guest, Joanna Stadweiser, who's going to share a recent experience that she had, which she and I have been talking a little bit, and I just thought it was great information to bring forth to you all out there who are dealing with this on a regular basis. Then we're gonna review chapter 10 on the book tonight. We got a one little brief thing on the aviation news update, and then we got a question that came in into the Facebook group actually, and so we will talk about that. Okay, so the poll question, we try to run a poll question every week, and this week, based on some Facebook chatter, it's to medicate or not to medicate. That is the question. So if you medicate, in addition to all the great tips and skills and strategies that we give you, answer yes. If you don't, put a note on there. We'll just see what the feelings are out there. And then the really big news that I've touched on is we're going to resume the classes. The date is May 1st. Mark that on your calendar. It's May 1st, and 7 to 9 o'clock at Phoenix Sky Harbor. So if you can get there, be there if you're in town or whatever. Yeah, and we're still trying to work out the details on either, I don't know whether we're going to be able to live broadcast it, but I'm going to try to certainly record it and put it up online if we can't do a live broadcast. Well, it may do both actually. So we have a limit on the number of students there because of COVID-19. So if you want to go, get your name in early, and we still allow coaches. Sometimes we have families that bring more than two, but typically it'll be the Fearful Flyer and a coach, and that's anybody who supports you in that. Because we do throw out some suggestions and tips for what you can do to help your Fearful Flyer that you love and cherish. Because sometimes it's really frustrating to not know what to do to help them. So, okay, let's open it up to Joanna here. Joanna, you and I, we were debating, and we met 13 or almost 14 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you found me, but you were living in San Diego. You came over here. Your husband Steve's mom was here. I just remember you reminded me of that, and we just got together. Was it Thanksgiving Day or Thanksgiving weekend?
Thanksgiving week.
Yeah.
And we had come for Thanksgiving, and we didn't have any children yet or anything, but we were thinking about it. And so I knew, this had been a lifelong thing for me up to that point. And I knew I did not want to pass it on to my kids. So I had to tackle this. Plus, we wanted to be the couple that traveled with our children and, saw things and, weren't bound to home. So I Googled you. I mean, I had tried, I think I had been trying to kind of desensitize myself on my own. And I have a history of panic and anxiety. So I was seeing a therapist, and then I just kept buying tickets on Southwest, and I would go to the airport and I would sit with no intention of getting on the plane. And then I would leave. And then I would, because they let you just cancel that ticket and then you have the credit. So then I would rebook. And I would go, and I finally got to the point where I went up and I said, look, I want to get on the plane, but I just want to sit there. And then when you're going to close the door, I want to get off. Like, is that okay? And they were so cool about it. Yeah. So they did that, but it just couldn't get me to where I needed to be. So then I finally Googled, and I don't even know what I was Googling, and I don't know how you came up, honestly. I just knew I needed like a class. I needed to fly with like people like me and try to figure this out. And just so happened you happen to be in Phoenix. And I was like, well, I can drive there. No problem. Lickety split. So we met, and you sat with me. I think your session, you were going to meet with me, and it was supposed to be like an hour or something. And we talked for 3 hours.
Yeah. I have that problem with a lot of people.
That never happens.
Not one of us have ever heard of that happening.
No. That website before Dieter fixed it was Captain Ron's Last Chance. That's probably how you found him.
No, but it was amazing, because I think what you did for me, which now being older, I know about myself that is very important. I need to understand something in order not to fear it. I know that's not possible with everything all the time, but it really applied with flying, because I could not understand how this mass of metal was staying in the air.
And
So-
that's true of us as humans. We model things. You know, I call them making stories up, but a story is nothing more than your own internal model of what you're seeing, what you're experiencing. Even as things like taste and smell and hearing, we model that in our own mind. So that's not uncommon to do that, and that's why one of the two main tenets for me of overcoming fear of flying is to look at the stories you tell yourself, you know, and get a better understanding and educate yourself, particularly when it comes to the technical aspects of flying. And it's not important that you know what V1 is or how to compute it yourself necessarily, but it is important for you to be rolling down the runway maybe and say, you know, I don't remember exactly what V1 was, but I remember Ron talked about this.
V1 changed my life.
Yeah, and when I was there, we were talking about it. I was comfortable with that. So you're internalizing the feelings. And the hard part about fear of flying is it's hard to normalize it because you do it so infrequently that, you know, as a rule, unless you're like Eric or Diane or I, where you start doing it on a regular basis, you just don't normalize things like you do in a car or something like that. And I just want to emphasize that you look so calm and collected and you're put together right now, but this was a real difficult thing for you, wasn't it?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And we ended up flying together. I think we went to Oakland and back the first time.
Yes, we did.
On a rainy day, out of sand.
Rainy freaking day.
Yeah. With clouds and everything.
Bumps and clouds and having to circle. Was that the one we had to circle, or was that?
Yep. Yeah. We just delayed a little bit because of it was really pretty much wet all the way up the coast and stuff.
Yep.
So
sure was. And you know, now again, being older and looking at things and being, you know, not to get all woo-woo, but a little spiritual, it's like, okay, you know, I was being handed things that were going to challenge me of how bad did I, and you said to me, you said, how bad do you want it? Like, this is the way that, I don't know if you said it this particular way, but this is, you know, the universe testing you. How bad do you want it? Yeah. And I remember being like, oh, you know, I said that to my daughter today, by the way. She was struggling with going to the skate park and there were a bunch of boys there and she wants to get good at skating. And I said, how bad do you want it?
Yeah. It is. It seems like and I see that with people, particularly if they haven't flown for a long time or maybe ever. And the closer they get, the anxiety for many people gets really, really intense. And I like to think that you can look at that as a sign, like the old days when you shouldn't fly. But I'd rather have you look at a sign that you know, that part of you that's trying to pull you out of it, the disorder basically is telling you no, but it's sensing that you are really committed this time, and it's going to have to put up its best act in order for you to not go through with it.
Right. So, you know, it was really, you know, interesting because I hadn't flown, you know, because of COVID, everything's been, you know, and I would characterize myself now as somebody, I'm comfortable flying, but if I'm out of practice, those old tapes will start. So I have to do my homework, and my homework was thank God you have this Facebook thing, because seriously, it did prep me, and it was, you know, getting me refreshed for just to squash all those voices. So I think I watched like 3 or 4 of these Facebook lives to just get back into the practice of, like, you know, telling a new story. Sure. And it funnily enough, I was like, well, you know, checking the weather obsessively, like before I left, like, okay, I just need a smooth flight, because the other problem is that I'm trying to hide any of this from my children because I don't want, you know. And they've already expressed every now and then, they're like, I'm a little scared of the plane. I don't, you know, and it's so funny, the things that come out of my mouth. I'm like, this is going to be the safest part of your day.
Yeah. So the teacher often spouts what the teacher most needs to learn. So.
Yes. And I'll say, you know, my son was worried about the oxygen masks, and I was like, but thank goodness they thought of the oxygen mask, because if they didn't, you know, so it's funny what comes out of my mouth. But so we had kind of an interesting recent flight, and it tested me again.
Yeah. And that's how we got reconnected, because she called me up and said, oh, I'm checking the weather and I'm doing all this, and Eric and I will always commend you for checking the weather, because it's one of the things that we don't have to do then. So
perfect.
Yeah,
I got it.
Yeah. Our work is done.
That was awesome what's great is that I texted you and I said, I just feel better that you know that I'm in the air.
Sure.
So whether or not you get back to me, I need you to know I'm in the air.
Yeah, and, that's that widely publicized omnipotence that I have.
Yeah.
Makes a huge difference. Yeah.
But amazingly, you always text back. So it is kind of freaky. So you texted right back.
It's either some kind of reliability or I don't have a life at all.
Either way, it makes me very happy.
Or you text at the right time. So
good. I'm glad.
And we have fun, don't we? We have a lot of. I try to inject some humor and stuff in there, and
it works. And it works. And I was obsessive about the weather, and then sure enough.
And for the people listening, what was it about the weather when you?
I am worried about thunderstorms still.
Okay. Oh gosh, you're the only one that's ever expressed that.
I just do not like it. And I know that they have radar. I know they have equipment, but I don't know enough about it to really understand what they're going to do to not make it bad. Still, I still don't quite get how they're not going to be surprised by something popping up.
Yeah. And Eric, how do we not get surprised? Except when we get surprised.
You're setting us up for so much smart mouthery, and I'm really.
I know. I got her because she's a great straight person.
And I can't. I'll tell you later. One of your frontier buddies 1,000 years ago. We're in middle of night, November, and I'll tell you who it was later. And way off the distance, a lightning flash, and he curses and he goes, "What month is this anyway?" And it was. It's late November. It was pretty weird. Right. A legitimate question. No, Joanna, we look at that stuff just like you before we go, and we have an entire department looking at that before we go, and they're selecting routes based on that. And now, since Al Gore has invented the internet and we all have iPads in the airplane, we're connected, and we can live stream that stuff hundreds of miles out in front of us. So we don't know, oh man, we need to make a turn right now. We know many states away, many hundreds of miles away, and we're going to have to change the route to
you do?
It's away from those. So we have both the radar for close in, and then we have the live streaming. So we know where that stuff is way out in front of us. And in case you're worried about this, the company has blocked sites with used trucks, used airplanes. People who want to meet us or anything not related to flying, we can't get on our company computer. So if we're going to look at something, we actually have to look at the weather, flight planning, performance, and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And a show note for those who I just got to read. We are not going to do chapter 10 out of the book. We're going to do that next week because this is much better than anything I had planned before.
And you're set up now.
When we do our briefing, when the flight attendants and the pilots, we do our briefing, they'll just tell us there are some things that we have to relate, simple things, but then they'll tell us, well, we're going to have this, and we might have to divert a little bit, and it's looking like the turbulence is going to be 2 and 3s, and it might be a little bumpy in the climb out, and cruise is going to be smooth, might be a little bump. So we before we even leave the ground, the pilots know, of course, but then they tell us, flight attendants, so we know what to expect. And if the circumstances change throughout the course of the flight, they'll call us on the phone and say, hey, listen, it's going to be really, really smooth. Go do whatever you want to do. We're going to turn the seatbelt sign off, or vice versa. You know what? We just got a report. It's going to be a little bit bumpy. And so we're going to try to find some calmer air. But just in case, go ahead and secure the galley, clean up everything, and you guys go ahead and sit down. So there's really no surprises.
Okay, so that is so here's what, just so you know, this is what goes through a fearful flyer's mind. I'm looking out the window trying to look ahead at the clouds, and I feel like I'm the only one going, do they not see those thunderheads? They're right there. So it was funny. I caught myself this time flying. I did very well. But I caught myself. I literally, my shoulders were like this. I was calm, but I was doing this.
Yeah.
And this may be a topic for another night because I'd love to talk to you about it at some point, but I think I literally am keeping the plane up by doing this.
Absolutely. And,
Like,
and you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
really,
the problem
there's
is you
nothing about
all are not reliable enough, because when you do that, it actually pulls us up, but then you relax ever so slightly and the airplane drops again. So
that.
The only people who are scared of the flight attendants because we don't know what you guys are doing.
I know,
yeah,
like,
there you go.
too many variables.
I want to say a shout out to a client in back in the Midwest named Mary. I think Mary's watching tonight, and we were talking about this thing this very afternoon, and she had been watching numerous turbulence incidents on the internet.
Oh, no.
And even as she was telling me, she said, I know I shouldn't be doing that, and then what ends up is you end up with just reinforcing your confirmation bias. You're afraid of thunderstorms, you're afraid, and she saw people get hurt or they got thrown. And she was the one that conceded that the reason that they got hurt was because they were not strapped in. And that's why we tell you, please, even if it's not bumpy, if you're just sitting there in your seat, keep your seatbelt fastened on, because that's how people get hurt in the airplane. They don't get hurt from the airplane breaking. They don't get hurt from anything else. They get hurt from not being prepared. And that's why we work with people like Diane and coordinate the fact that if we think there's the slightest chance that anybody can be bounced around back there, we want the flight attendants to be seated and protected as you are.
That's really reassuring because, even so what ended up happening on our flight is that, I was looking at the weather app on the plane,
Sure.
and I was seeing that there, and in Raleigh, it changes very quickly there. So, it was like 30% chance, 100% chance, 70% chance of thunderstorms. And as we were starting to descend, it said, a national weather, advisory, tornado watch, and severe thunderstorms. And I was like, oh my God. And I looked at Steve and I'm showing him and he's like, whoa. And then the other people around is also what reinforced the fear. And this woman who was from the area was like, oh my God. And so that was just like,
no.
And
I hired her to fly with you just for that purpose. Yeah.
I knew it. So then what was really great, this is awesome, is so the pilot comes on and, we were probably 20 minutes from landing and he's, in his calm drawl, he's got the calm drawl that y'all have. I don't know how you get it, but he, ladies and gentlemen, they've got some weather moving through and we're just gonna circle. He said, we've got about 25 minutes of burn fuel. I thought he said we had 25 minutes of fuel left.
Right. A common mistake.
Flight panic.
Yeah. He may have made a mistake.
So we do concede to let you watch the weather for us. We do not let you manage the fuel for us.
No.
Yeah.
Joanna, he may have even said that, but what he meant was he had 5 minutes to hang around, watch the tornado, else, and after that, you would have to place to land. Not that he was going to be out of gas in 25 minutes.
No,
We're running on
totally misunderstood him. So he circled for 25 and he said, if we, then we'll have to decide. And if we go somewhere else, we're going to go to Charleston. And so of course the woman next, oh my God, that's in another state. And then everyone freaked out, but it was literally 20 minutes away. It was so that we did have to divert to Charleston. It was just so routine. It felt so routine. They landed, they had to figure out, what we were going to do. We had to get a new crew because they were at their maximum flight hours. So we had to wait 2 hours. But it was like the universe was handing out here you go.
You did great on that one,
Yeah.
Joanna. Here comes another. Yeah, and we were joking, and I honestly didn't intend this. But we came to the point, well, what's the worst that could happen? I said, you'll end up getting an extra ride going somewhere else. And sure enough, you guys went to an alternate. Do you know how rare that is? Even though it happened
Of course.
Yeah, it is extremely rare for anybody to actually go to their alternate or to an alternate there. So
in 2 years, I've only done it once.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, 2 years, I've only diverted once.
In my career, in 30 years in the airlines, I'll bet I've not done it 5 times where you
Seriously?
actually go to the alternate. It's incredibly rare. But look at this now. You can look back on that, and all the times, you know, I don't know if you got tired from being sick and tired, but it you know, it is. And your amygdala has to be activated for you to get the benefit for the future. If you dull yourself with medications or with alcohol, it won't have the same benefit that it does when you do it clean or sober.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I do understand that. It was, I will tell you, then only 39-minute flight to get back to Raleigh that night. We made it just great. It was fine. And I'll tell, I mean, I was exhausted, but I am so glad I went through that, because I got to see it, and I got to see how routine it was for them. Nobody, and now hearing what you guys are saying, that probably, I mean, I'm sure it was a surprise in the sense that weather changes so quickly, but it wasn't a surprise to them that they were like, oh, flipping through the manual of like, how do we divert, you know?
Right. As Eric said, you know, we are real-time streaming information like that now. Whereas before we always had our own radar display, which is real time, but it's different when you're getting the National Weather Service behind you on your team, and you've got that. And next week, for those of you who may be disappointed because they didn't talk about chapter 10 about how we do make it so safe, we're going to talk about that next week. And Eric's going to talk a little bit about the fact that everybody's got an iPad now, and they won't let us put cartoons and videos on it. So, you know, we have to use it for what it was designed. So
unless we have Joanna on, we'll do chapter 10 next week.
There you go. There you go. So
the worst part though, when we had to divert, is we were supposed to land in St. Louis Obispo, and they were going to put us up in this wonderful, wonderful hotel resort right on the ocean. And instead we had to go to Los Angeles.
Yeah, so that's the best part. Is where you get to stay. So,
we didn't care where we were, but anyway.
So I'll ask Dieter, any questions relevant to Joanna's testimony here, Dieter? If there are, we'll take them. If not.
Yeah, there definitely great conversations going on. And so first of all, you know, it's your courage and your determination ultimately that allowed you to get to the place where you could trust that information that was presented to you was actually trustworthy, right? And so that's been echoed in the group by Michelle. Michelle said too, you know, I was flying fine, had an experience, and away it went, you know, and then she kind of worked her way back. And
Michelle's a good spokesperson for persistence and staying with it, because I sat next to Michelle when she got back on the horse, so to speak.
Yeah, she was at the Air Hollywood class in 2017. And Jim Duke.
But it is persistence and courage really is what gets people through it. And you can't get over it without getting on the airplane. You can't get over it without going through the anxiety. And truly, the only way out of it is through it. And that's it. So I want to thank you, Joanne. Stay with us. We're gonna, Dieter, if you can go to slide 20, we'll just pick it up from there. That I just want to quickly advertise the experts turbulence and takeoff guide that is becoming much more popular. Some of you have been hiding in the closets because I'm getting coaching every day. Multiple people signing up for that 15-minute coaching session, which is good. Please don't quit. Keep coming forth, and we'll do a 15-minute session. And as Joanna pointed out, rarely is it ever 15 minutes. So, and the next thing, if you haven't joined our Birds of a Feather group, we really want to encourage you to do that. The numbers truly make a difference. We're getting some really great interaction between people, some good support going on, and some great sharing of experiences there. Then 22, I just want to say just a little bit, Eric and I were going to just banter about this just a little bit. This is you know, anytime you got sports teams, I don't know how many sports teams you hauled, Eric, but I was lucky enough to get some charters and stuff. And that was always fun because the food was amazing when you haul a basketball team or football team. Man, they really put on the deal. And so that was a good deal. But the thing that you become aware of is how many of those athletes are terrified to fly. You know, I mean, these are guys in control of their entire game, but just terrified about flying there. So here's an airplane. The Utah Jazz was flying from Salt Lake to wherever they were headed, and what, 5 minutes, 10 minutes into takeoff, something like that. They had bird strikes.
Totally.
And they turned around. We can't even find the details on what it was, what caused them to turn around, other than the obvious. They had some kind of concerns or damage to one of the engines. But in any case, they turned around and landed. And you got quotes that this might really be the end. Utah Jazz players recall terrifying plane scare. They did everything but hold their own memorial service on the airplane. You know, I mean, it's unbelievable. And the news just plays right into it. You know, and that's another thing that Mary and I were talking about. When something like this happens, they go to the most verbally, shaken person, and they ask them, "What did you think?" "Oh, I was terrified. I thought we were going to die," and all that. And when you think about it, you're in an interview post-flight talking about dying. Obviously, you didn't. Okay, so you want to be careful. I invite any of you out there, if you have a YouTube fascination and you absolutely have to go do this, send Eric and I the links so we can take a look at it and put some truth spin on it, because it's just not worth amping yourself up like that. You're just feeding that anxiety. And I'm not telling you have to stick your head in the sand, but you do want to be responsible about looking for things like that until you've got some ammo on board your own person to counter that. Anything else, Eric, that worthy of that?
We should answer. We could hit that again, but you hit all the high points of that. We don't even need to go through what happened. I mean, it was extremely capable airplane, very well maintained by Delta, by current pilots, and the single engine capability of that airplane is better than any other airline in the air. So it was for a non.
And that airplane is a 757, which you flew for years. Yeah. And probably one of the most overpowered airplanes ever built.
It is the highest power to weight ratio of any airliner still in the air. And that leg to Memphis was really only about a quarter of the maximum distance they could have flown. So they were way light on fuel. They didn't have a full plane. They would have had extreme excess performance, a non-event for them. I wanted to do 30 more seconds and ask Joanna's answer her original question that we were talking about earlier. She's obviously a collector of drama. On your trip to Minneapolis sometime, is that right? When you went around, is that right, Joanna?
Raleigh.
You're going to where?
Oh, what?
Raleigh or?
Oh no, when you went, approached the airport and then you went around and flew around for 20 minutes, went back and landed. That was your question, right?
That was what I did in Raleigh.
Oh, no, that's the question coming up. Just 1 second. No, that was there. No, hold off on that. So we'll close out the Utah Jazz thing, reminding everybody that the tie between a bird and an airplane always goes to the airplane. The bird's lost again, right?
Yes.
All right. So next slide there, we'll do, this is the question that came in, and it was another one of our followers, Eric. And she said, my girlfriend just flew back from Atlanta to Minneapolis last weekend. She said when they got to Minneapolis, the plane came down to land and went right back up and circled for 20 minutes. There was no communication from the crew to the passengers at all. When they landed, it was as if nothing had happened. Nobody said a word. My girlfriend called Delta and spoke to a supervisor, and the supervisor said no record of any happenings like what they said had just happened. What happened? She thought they were being hijacked. Okay, and this was. Okay, go ahead, Eric. So they circled for 20 minutes. Do you think they circled, Eric, or do you think it took 20 minutes to get back around and land?
Oh, 20 minutes easily in Minneapolis to get back in line. So what happened is the airplane's approaching the runway, and there was highly likely an airplane that had landed in front of them. And just like LA or any place else, if you miss an exit, there's another one coming up real soon. And the controllers may have planned on them taking a certain exit or taxiway that they missed, and or it could have possibly been a takeoff where they didn't get going as fast as possible, and they cannot allow two airplanes on the runway at the same time, even if there's 2 miles of room and one is obviously gone. And the controllers never trust the pilots for good reason. They just can't do it. So if there was an airplane not airborne or had missed the taxiway, they had to tell the airplane that our guest was on to go around, and they drag that out until the last few seconds in case the airplane clears and they can get them to land. So once they go around, which is a normal procedure, we do it all the time in training, they have to fit them back into the traffic flow because the controllers didn't plan on fitting them back in, and they get pretty busy with the pilots. And it would have been really nice for the pilots to talk to you, to talk to the back, tell them what happened. But they're real busy coordinating because they didn't plan on that either. They planned on being on the ground. Between them and the ATC, they're real busy getting fitted around to go, and it's probably circling. It was probably one big circle back around into the line to go back and land.
So you have to train your pilots. That is why I highly recommend, if you have any anxiety about flying, when you get on the airplane, ask to meet the pilots. We've gone through how you get in the early boarding if you have an anxiety disorder related to flying. And the one thing you want to communicate to your pilots up there is, hey, I'm a little nervous about flying. Anything you can tell me about today's flight, I would appreciate. Will it make a major difference in their brain? Who knows? But it may connect them in a way that you need just to be a little bit more observant and connected to you in the back and think about you if something does like that does go wrong. And most importantly, even more important, is when you get off the airplane, I don't care whether it was a go around that you didn't know what was going on, or whether it was turbulence during flight that really set you off, whatever it was, you want to make a point to usually one of the pilots is there while you're deplaning and say, hey, is this a good time for a question? I always do that to anybody I speak to show a little bit of respect towards them. But then say, you know, that craziness that we went through back there, were we ever in jeopardy back there? And because you want to leave your anxiety on that airplane for the next person like Joanna, because we don't want to deprive anybody of any anxiety, okay? Just don't take it with you when you leave, because it grows and it fills the void and it makes it harder the next time. Okay. And Dieter, you look like you have something really important.
Yeah, really important. Well, we got the really important thing is this: we're about 8 minutes over, but we got some questions, so we could either wrap them up and do them next time, or a couple of them are related. Yeah.
Let's do that. Okay, we'll bring those questions in next week, and we'll review chapter 10. But we definitely have to go to slide 27 here, because Diane's been a little bit on edge. She's far enough into the job to notice that people are not always their gracious selves when they're on the airplane. And so when we first heard that she jumped out of an airplane, we were all aghast, because we thought maybe she decided to end it all. But then we found out she actually took somebody with her and had a parachute. So this is our Diane, if we can get it up here. This is her being, we won't say forced out. It was a mutual decision, we trust.
Yeah, it was because we're pretty much strapped together.
So you just decided that you needed to complete your life's work by adding this to your resume.
Yes,
right?
Jumping out of a perfectly good airplane.
Yeah,
that's
a crime. Yeah, pilots do not do that. And here's the next one there. What a shot.
Apparently, I only paid for part of the trip.
There you go.
That was apparently it.
So
that was one of my bucket list items, was to go skydiving. So
that is so cool. And that was a surprise to all of us. And I want to congratulate you, because that really, really takes big cojones. That's really cool.
And I went with a friend of mine who is only 27. And I'm 73, so our combined ages were 100, which is
nice.
Cool.
Nice.
But the people down at the skydiving place down in Eloy thought it was really cool, because she's a pilot and I'm a flight attendant, and she had jumped once a long time ago, about 9 or 10 years ago, and it was. I've done a lot of stuff in my life, a lot of athletic and challenges and glider rides and all kinds of stuff like that. But this was really exciting.
Well, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's taken one for the Fearless Flight team to do because it is thematic. You really need to push yourselves life starts at the end, at the end edge of your limits.
Yes.
That's
And one
really,
thing
I believe
said,
that on
he
that.
said, how bad do you want it?
Yeah.
And that went for me because I became a flight attendant at the tender age of 71. You've got to really want it if you're going to go through all that at that advanced age. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing for skydiving. You've got to really want it. And this is something I would never push on anyone, because trust me, it's not an easy thing to do.
Right.
But if you ever have an inclination, it's the most exciting thing I've ever done.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. And
Thanks.
Eric and I were debating, we said, geez, what if your chute didn't open or something like that? And then we saw the size of the guy you were with, and we figured if he just rolled over, he could take the impact and you'd walk away from it. So that would be good. Yeah. No harm, no foul.
And I just,
Okay.
when we landed, I landed standing up. It was really
Oh, it was amazing, the landing there. Yeah. Yeah. So you did a good
Otherwise,
job of
we
that.
would have had to put by your name Flight Attendant Diane, not Flight Attendant Diane. So we were a little worried.
It's all good.
Yeah.
And we have one caveat. If you happen to fly on an airplane that Diane is the flight attendant on, if she walks on with a parachute, get off.
Yeah.
Because she may know something that you don't. So
And no
anyway.
one else does.
All right. Thanks,
That's a great
Diane.
advice.
Yeah. And Dieter and Eric. And thanks again, Joanna, for
Thank you.
bearing your soul. And thanks to all of you for watching. We'll see you again next week for another episode of Fearless Flight Live. Have a great week, everybody. And get out there and buy some tickets. The airline needs the money.
I need the money.
Diane needs the money. All right. Have a great week.